Today, I want to talk about Iran and specifically investing in Iran. Now, this is a market that a lot of people instantly, you talk to them about it and they have a perception on it. And this is where personally I like to see the perception gap in the market, right? So one of the things that I look for with this Invest Global YouTube channel and, what I do personally, even if I wasn't doing this channel with traveling around to all these different countries, currently here in Krakow, Poland, incredible investment opportunities here as well. But with Iran specifically, I find it fascinating because, you ask people in the UK or Australia or in the US or Canada, hey, what do you think of Poland? Maybe they're neutral on it, right? Most people haven't been here. They probably don't know a lot about it. But you ask people about Iran and instantly they have a thought in their mind, right? This is a perception gap in the market. And beyond that, I think this is a really, really interesting investment opportunity beyond just the perception gap, because if you look at just like, okay, what are the cheapest stock markets in the world, right? So pretty much all countries have different equities that trade on some global markets than some just domestic markets where you have to actually travel there, open up a brokerage account. But with Iran specifically, I mean, the price to earnings ratio is around 4 to 5. This is basically unheard of in a lot of the more developed countries. And Iran, massive population, and actually a younger population with declining unemployment. So this is one of the things that I want to talk about today with some of these indicators that I like to look at personally. One of the negative factors, which again, you can kind of balance these negative factors, right? So if you're in Iran and you're spending the local currency, inflation can hurt you. But if you see this increase in inflation and you go, okay, maybe this is an interesting investment opportunity, because again, there's already this perception gap in the market. A lot of people already would never, you ask the average person, would they consider investing in Iran? They would run away, right? So this is where I do find some interesting opportunity when some of these numbers are read here, right? So when we have some of these where, Iran, maybe at a surface level, you may look at this and go, okay, inflation rates 47%, interest rates 18%, not the best situation, but that could be an opportunity, I personally think, to enter into some of these equities for long-term growth at lower valuations, right? Because once these numbers are all green, once it's all sunshine and rainbows and everybody's like, hey, Iran's this awesome market, everybody come in, hey, it's probably too late at that point. The mass amount of money has already been made. When you're looking at GDP per capita, it's right around $6,000. Population is 84 million people. So I think a lot of people discount this, right? It's actually a massive population. Again, younger demographics in Iran specifically. We're looking at a GDP of around $191 billion. And again, these numbers are pretty rounded on this site, so keep that in mind. So everything we talk about in this video, by the way, will be linked down below in the description. And we also have a Telegram group. So if you have any individual questions, you can leave them down in the YouTube comments, but for some reason, YouTube's been strange about investing in business channels where they've randomly been deleting comments or I'll respond to someone's comments. And I know other people are going through the same thing as well. And then randomly, it'll be a long response. Maybe it'll be a couple sentences, and then it just randomly gets deleted. So these things are kind of frustrating. But the beautiful thing about Telegram, nothing gets deleted unless you're spamming or doing something that you shouldn't be doing. But there's no censorship or anything like that. I'm open to all conversations on there, whether it's investing, travel, really anything. And it's a group of like-minded investors. So keep that in mind if you have any questions about investing in Iran or anything like that. Also, if you're interested in working with Invest Global one-on-one, there's an email down below in the description where you can get in contact with one of the members from the team. But as I was saying, unemployment rate has significantly declined. Right around 9.5%. I mean, South America is one of the worst unemployment rates. It's pretty crazy. It's a market that I've been looking a little bit at personally. In Africa, I really like Tanzania and Kenya specifically. But when it comes to this, you look at debt to GDP, not bad, right? I ran economic indicators. Looking here, balance of trade has significantly increased, especially in Q2. I think a lot of this is due to the kind of sentiments around Biden potentially lifting the sanctions on Iran. So could be interesting. As you know, U.S. citizens, you literally can't visit Iran unless you have a tour guide with you pretty much at all times. There is this island. I can't remember the exact island's name. It's kind of on the west side of Iran. And it's like Ghost. I can't remember the exact name of it. It's something to do with a ghost, I'm pretty sure. But I can't remember the exact name or whisper, something like this. Let me know in the comments or in the Telegram group if you know what I'm talking about. But essentially, you can visit there without a tour guide. Personally, I hate having a tour guide with me. I like to be free and agile wherever I'm traveling in. I'm actually headed to Prague here tomorrow. So, interesting as far as that goes, because this is kind of one of the last closed countries, if you will, right? So another thing to take into account there, consumer price index has significantly increased. GDP growth rate kind of topped out there in Q4 of 16, and now has just kind of been moving sideways. Current account GDP has declined. Currency, as you can see, has inflated pretty decently, which is, again, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? So it depends what you're doing with the currency, right? But unemployment rate has declined, which is always good to see. Then some more detailed things. Now, I want to give a big shout out to Undervalued Shares. It's an incredible website. I can't remember the guy's name that runs it, but he talks about all different global equities. He actually has a great series on Poland as well. Highly recommend you check them out, Undervalued Shares. He also he has a lot of free content, and then a lot of he just like an amazing paid newsletter. So I don't recommend a lot of individual investment research people, but I think he does great work. But anyways, he talked about Pomegranate investment, and this is an interesting way to gain access or at least allocation to Iran. They're kind of building, or they've invested in kind of this Amazon of Iran, as he said it. Digicala, if I understand, this is the company they're talking about. So obviously, Pomegranate investment is more kind of like a fund. They invest in multiple different equities in Iran and essentially kind of de-risk you from having just one individual allocation to a company. So let's say you're only investing in Cafe Bazaar and you don't know the details of it. You haven't actually been to Iran, visited, okay, what they're what they're building. I think this is pretty incredible. So 40 million Iranian users, that's about half of the population, have the Cafe Bazaar's application on their phone. That's pretty awesome. I'd be curious to know, like, okay, Starbucks, what percentage of people in the US or worldwide have Starbucks on their phone, right? I doubt it's half of the population in the US. This is really interesting what they're building here, Cafe Bazaar. I like it. And essentially the idea here is if you can get into some of these companies before they open up, before these sanctions are potentially lifted, before the company because I do think at some point, I mean, this whole idea that you have to go there with a travel guide, it's really, again, it's not that unsafe of a country. In the grand scheme of things, I think so many people have this perception gap again on like, you're going to go there and it's like a war zone. No, not at all. Not at all. Similar with, I remember I was just recently in Ukraine, and some people still think that, Ukraine, obviously there's some problems on the border with Russia, but it's such an isolated event, right? So this whole idea, again, it's the perception gap, right? So this is something to take in mind. But that's personally where I think there is opportunity. And especially since we have seen some of these, a little bit of significant pullback. People started to become a bit more interested when Biden was in office, but with his inflation situation, I think some of these equities are declining a little bit. So yeah, that's basically all for this video. I just wanted to introduce you to investing in Iran. This is just a very basic overview of Iran. I'm planning to do detailed videos on it. I'll probably end up visiting that island in Iran because sadly, I'm not going to go to the mainland if I need a tour guide with them the whole time. It's just not as interesting. But if you're curious on any different country you want me to cover next, let me know in the comment section. Hit us on Telegram. Also, our Twitter's linked down below at investglobal_IO. That's all for this one. If you enjoyed it, like the video, subscribe to the channel, stay up to date, hit the notification bell, and click all. As always, invest global, and until next time.